Welcome to the Left On. My name is Ajoke, and on the left I have Fu'ad Lawal. Fu'ad Lawal, hi, how are you doing? I know you
Fu'ad
are a
Lawal.
black
When
person.
if you anybody that calls me by my name and surname must send me money.
Okay.
Because how are you calling my full name if you're not going to the only time that my full name should be
Pops up on
appearing
bank, right? The
is
bank
when
app.
do you understand? When you're trying to when it's confirming my BVN of your account number. If you're calling my full name, my account number is 00329698857.
No, but that's not your full name. There's still a middle name.
Yeah, but that's the one that you can use to send money, at least.
As long as I didn't call the full name.
Okay.
All right. Good to have you today. So what were you doing today before you got here? What were you doing?
I was writing. I was writing something. But here I am. It's fair amount of coffee in my system. Trying to keep calm and keep steady, like a bloody junkie.
Why coffee? Because you want to write?
No. I currently run on 3 liquids.
Okay.
Water, Zobo, and coffee.
I think I know the Zobo part.
Yeah, so those are the only 3 things I drink.
Okay, good.
I'm a social Coca-Cola drinker.
The association.
Yeah, very funny story how I started drinking Coke again.
Tell us about it.
So I stopped drinking Coke for 8 months in 2019. And in 2019, I went on this road trip around West Africa. And while I was on that trip,
Interesting.
I was on the trip, I think I was in Ghana when I got a message from the Lagos office, Zikoko, that Coca-Cola just confirmed that they were going to sponsor Jollof Road. I just carried cough like this.
You drank the Coke
every 2 seconds.
out of excitement or what?
Content. Content. I haven't been able to quit Coke for that long since then.
Oh wow! So you still take Coke?
Yeah, okay. Social cooked, like the way people are social smokers. I'm a social drinker of Coca-Cola.
Oh, okay. So tell me, growing up, what's your oldest memory of your journey? Like your oldest memory of your life journey, basically.
I don't know, man. Like if you ask me about my life journey,
oldest one that you can remember.
My oldest memory ever. My oldest memory ever is of my 5-year-old birthday.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, it's the cake was, even as a child I knew the cake was messy.
Who had food?
It was a sky. I mean, I remember the color of the cake from the pictures, but I remember the things that happened that day. I remember going to school with a flask that had tasty time inside. I remember going to school with the cake. I remember the photo with my teacher, my nursery teacher. I had a crush on her. I had a crush in nursery school. I have been consistent.
On your
I had a crush in nursery school. But yeah, if you're asking me about like the oldest memory I've had of wanting to be something,
yeah.
I'd say like every kid, I did the good old trinity of careers.
Okay.
Which is doctor, engineer. Okay, I didn't do lawyer. I feel like there has never been a second in my life where I thought I was ever going to be a lawyer. I feel like if there's only one person left in the world,
it shouldn't be you, right?
Like to do law, or die, I will die.
Wow. Why is that?
I don't know. I just don't care about.
Maybe because you didn't have a lawyer in your family.
Or maybe because I just did not like their wigs, their ugly wigs.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but okay. So I think the oldest thing I remember wanting to be was a doctor. I think I was in primary 3. But we also happened to have a video club, right? We were renting out Nigerian movies, so English, Yoruba.
Yeah.
And
the cassette.
Yeah, VHS. I am Gen Z though. Let's not forget that.
Yeah,
but we rented out cassettes. And it's funny, right? Like in Hollywood movies as a child, one thing is certain, right? There's one constant plot instrument, and it is that when the doctor walks out and says we tried our best, they're going to squeeze the doctor's shirt and deck
I can relate.
and give the doctor dirty slap. And like as a child, right, already growing up in a house where there are the occasional dirty slaps, I'm like, do I really want this for the rest of my
I
life?
wasn't looking like your future.
Yeah, so I knew for some reason I did not. I knew I was not going to be a doctor, and it's funny because the reason why that was even an idea was that I was very comfortable with blood as a child.
Oh my
Very
God.
very comfortable.
Oh,
I used to be so excited to help them cut meat, like hold meat while they're cutting and chook hand in the blood.
Wow. Ew.
Then the next thing was banker. Oh, this one's very brief. My mom worked in Ikoyi prison, and Abacha sent a lot of bankers to prison, and like people working in corporate world to prison in the 90s, and so there wasn't a short supply of bankers in prison. And so I'm like, become a banker.
That's your end goal.
Do I really want to end
End
up here
point.
eating like endless
Oh wow.
endless bowls of beans inside this aluminium bowls and with the blue
Oh my
always
God,
faded
that's some
uniform?
traumatized childhood.
I don't know. It was rich. I consider it rich.
Interesting.
Giving me content. Look at, is that not why
I
I'm
agree.
here?
I really
Giving
agree.
me content.
With
Traumatize the children.
you. So
But
what did you end up doing?
I think where I ended up next is where I was for the longest, which is naturally because when they see you playing around with Lego a lot and playing around with stuff, and trying to make things and put things together. But oh yeah, be an engineer. And so it also helps that I had in our extended family there were a lot of engineers in the family. Like
Okay.
we have builders in the family. One of my uncles built at least a dozen federal government colleges in Nigeria and like was one of the builders of Terminal Bridge.
Wow.
So there wasn't a shortage
Interesting.
of engineering inspiration in the extended family.
I see.
But I wanted to be unique. And somehow I don't know, I have no memory of how I ended up there, but I knew I wanted petroleum engineering. I don't know how I ended up there. Maybe it was because again, oil boom, people wanted to work in
Okay.
oil companies. That was the dream that people
Right.
wanted to have like in the late 90s, early
90s,
2000s.
yeah, oil thing.
Yeah, so probably that's how I ended up in petroleum engineering. But it's also the thing that for like most of my life, that's what I wanted to be.
Petroleum engineer.
Yeah, like something chemical engineering or petroleum engineering. Chemical engineering is in a sense much broader.
Okay.
It's very horizontal. It means you can work across sectors, unlike petroleum where it feels vertical.
So your decision was basically because of the inspiration of your uncle.
Yeah,
and-
I think that's how I ended up in engineering.
Okay.
I also realized very early that I enjoyed chemistry. And chemistry is fundamentally the study of change. Basically, like what is matter and how is it changing from states to
Yes,
states.
different states, yeah.
Yeah, so I enjoyed chemistry a lot, even as a child. Like all of those science things, science. Oh yes, as a child. So I was really a child that I was I think all kids are curious, right? I just did not get slapped a lot for my curiosity. I also was a fairly mischievous child, so I knew how to hide on my things. So burning
It's a good
things.
combination.
So burning things, like mixing liquids. Once I don't see any remnant of oil, try to mix it and sediment it with water. All kinds of like stupid shit from all the science videos that I was exposed to as a child.
Wow. I think you still do that. I remember you talked about
I am that person.
the Gary and
Yeah, I'm still that person. Like as I am, I think my favorite thing about myself is that I remain unafraid. I'm not afraid to look stupid.
Wow.
I'm not afraid to look stupid. Like you,
Great.
like I can't because it's like I'm only going to be stupid like a few times, but once I get a hold of it,
You get it right.
like even if I don't get it right, I tried, right? But I'm not afraid to look stupid, and so that means that I'm always open to trying
Constantly
stuff.
Experimenting
Yeah,
with stuff.
yeah. So, I think by nature, like for me, like getting comfortable with the unknown means like getting comfortable with things like to some degree failure, to some degree looking stupid, that kind of stuff. Just not like consistently stupid, so that you don't build your reputation as a stupid person. um, then when I reached uni, it somehow evolved into industrial chemistry. It's also this thing where you go to a university, maybe they don't have the course that you want, so you just look
Okay,
for
so
the
you
place.
actually wanted the engineering, but
Yeah.
eventually
So
when you
I
got
learned
to
in
school,
industrial chemistry. Yeah.
okay.
And by the time I reached 200 level, I became completely disillusioned with. I still enjoyed the chemistry of it all. Um, but I quickly became disillusioned. I wonder what type of chemistry student I would have been if I had the internet though, because
Yeah. Because at that time, right?
like my source of knowledge was my lecturers who were boring, very boring. I had only one lecturer who we all genuinely found like intellectually stimulating. Only one. 4 years of university. By 2011, I was mostly disillusioned with school. Now another thing again is that when I think about it now, right, wanting to be a an engineer or industrial whatever, it felt like a means to an end, and the end for me, I didn't have any grand visions and ambitions for myself.
So what was the push? What was
My primary driver was that when we stuck in the hostel and say, oh, I want to go do this. My own was just I just wanted to be able to buy all kinds of things for my mom. I really just wanted to be able to spoil my mom. That was like my primary driver, right? And so
is it okay to call you mommy's boy?
I was a mommy's boy. Like
Oh.
like I was like my the relationship I had with my mom was there was parenting, like she was my parent and I was her child, but we're also friends, and so we had
That bond.
yeah we had like healthy banter. I'd argue with her about stuff abstract.
I wanted to be what she did, work in government or prisons.
It's also this thing where Nigerian society, there's a way it nurtures us, right?
Okay.
And it tells us that when you are very curious and you do above average, you go to science class. And there's that conditioning that happens, which is probably the stupidest thing that continues to exist.
And your grade is high, all as you move to science.
Yeah.
Social science and arts.
Yeah, I'm glad I did sciences, but I think I'd have been better off if I had a good mix of sciences and arts. Like a good mix of everything, to be honest. Just being able to select
what you really
across different classes. Because there's no reason why everyone who is in senior secondary school should not attempt business studies at some form.
Mm-hmm. Very correct.
Like because from business studies you can pick up a few skills around like financial literacy. There's no reason why like we should all not like do economics.
As a doctor.
Do you understand?
Yes.
There's no reason we shouldn't all like.
And those were purely science and science courses, art courses.
Yeah, so I always feel like it should be a healthy mix.
Okay, so what do you think that you actually, what was that thing for you that you took out of from school and you are actually relating with what you're doing now, that you can say this is one thing I learned while in school and I'm applying it as it stands?
When you say while in school, I imagine you're saying studying industrial chemistry.
Yes.
I mean,
generally in school, not necessarily studying industrial chemistry, yeah?
I haven't practiced as an industrial chemist. Probably never will. But I like to think of disciplines that exist as a sum of skill sets that we hone over time, right?
Okay.
And so, like, it requires a very high level of dexterity, right? To be a doctor. Dexterity, rigor, above average intelligence to be a doctor, discipline. But like some of these things are also what is required to be a good mechanic, right? I wonder what will happen if the person
Even a
who,
dancer.
yeah, I mean, I've never really thought about it in the dancing context. But I wonder what will happen if the person who is a mechanic is in the right environment and they can be like nurtured to become doctors instead. I'm making these things up. I do not have the science to validate these things I'm saying. Just a thought. But yeah, like I think that as a people, we have a tendency to say, "Oh, you studied one thing, you don't even practice it." I think it's extremely lazy thinking to say that. Mostly because by virtue, like we don't just learn in class, we learn in the environment.
I agree. Yeah.
And by virtue of being there are skills that you just pick up, right? You learn about deadlines from assessments and assignments.
Right.
You learn about just toiling from like having to show up to class every time.
Yeah.
You learn like grit. You learn all these things. And so I think that I can't even honestly say, oh, these are all the things I picked up in school because I just absorbed. I really just believe in people like living as many experiences and absorbing it because it does feel like all application of knowledge is down to how effectively we can retrieve information, right? Yeah. And like it's like for you to be able to retrieve information, you need to have it first. So it's like just absorb as many experiences, absorb everything.
As much. Yeah.
So I don't think school is a waste of time. I actually think it's extremely silly when people say that. Even if you studied philosophy.
That's because you're ignoring the skill set.
It's also because I think it also shows a lack of critical thinking. Because when we think of opportunity in the context of a society like Nigeria, we tend to think very vertically. And so a person who studied psychology believes that there are only many of the time believes that there might be only two options for them, which is to become a therapist. And no one, part in therapy in Nigeria, to end up at Arrow. Like when you could literally just become a user experience researcher or something. Yeah. Right? So anyway, I was talking about like motivation to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
Earlier. And my primary driver was like my mom. Like and then she passed away, right?
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
You did not kill her.
Sorry.
And she passed away, right? And like for a very like long time, like there was no longer a goal, so there was no need to score. Right? And so I feel like I just floated for like 3 years.
Tell me that you wanted to buy all the
I just floated for a few years.
Oh no.
But while I was floating, I kept trying all kinds of things, right? I kept trying all kinds of things. I learned how to make beads.
Beads.
Yeah. Sold a few. I learned how to make hearts.
Wow, like the heart.
Yes. I actually learned tie and dye too again. I learned tie and dye.
Oh, wow.
I was just like trying
What's the inspiration?
You know when you've seen videos of quicksand when you're sinking and you're just grasping for anything. You're not there's no inspiration. There's just survival. And so in a sense, I'm very, as a person, I'm very like terrified of feeling stuck. Right? So I kept trying kinds of things. Nothing just seemed to stick. In that period, as a coping mechanism, I also picked writing.
That's after mom's sister.
Yeah, I just used to write a lot more frequently. It was like 2012. And then people started saying, "Oh yeah, wow, you can write." They were all lying. Because writing was shit.
So that's where you started your career?
Career is a weird word. It's a very weird word for me.
We're still in the moment of floating, right?
Yeah, but it's also just a generally weird word I don't like to use very much, and we'll probably get to that part. And so like I had two friends who were designers. I feel whenever I think of the dark place I was in, right? I had friends, and those friends really came through for me. Just creating safe spaces, right, for me. I felt really safe amongst my friends. Unfortunately, even more than family at the time, and it does happen. It's just life.
Okay, it does.
But like two of my friends, it's like I was in. I said I talked about sinking sand. When I think of the two hands that grabbed me and like pulled me out, it's two of my guys, Osh and Goodman. And they were designers, and it was very minor stuff to them, right? They were designers, but they always needed me to. Goodman more than Osh, because Osh is extremely versatile. He can write, he can design, he can shoot videos, he can take photos, he can code, he can do everything. Goodman is very focused, and like his own focus tends to be narrow. And so they always needed copy. Oh, come on, help me write copy. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, someone in their office. I'm like, wait, you mean it's someone's job in your office to just be writing copy like this? I was like, oh, okay. This might look like a
thing for me, right?
Yeah. I didn't even know that word existed, but I think a major inflection point for me was one Saturday night in 2014. I was I borrowed my brother's laptop. Saturday night, November 2014. I remember the date, but it was a Saturday night. Never forget. And I opened all the job sites. I spread everything, like different tabs. I just kept searching for chem. I mean, okay. I didn't put chemistry or chemist or chemical, because I was like, you know what? If I put chem, it will catch all the chems.
It will catch all the chems.
I had less than 5 hits. And the highest paying one I saw at the time was like 30K. I was like, God.
Wow.
God, waiting be this.
4 years.
God, waiting be this. And then, maybe it was a bad time for me to be checking, but that's what I saw that night. And then I was like, people say I can write now.
Let me put write.
I just put writ. WRIT. I didn't even put writing, writer. I just saw all kinds of things. I was like, So like, someone like 80K.
We die here.
I said, if people say I can write, then I can write too. I remember then, I remember in February of 2015, I was like, look, I had only one prayer point. I just needed something that was going to give me data money for 4 months.
Yeah.
Well, I'll figure out my life. One company was hiring a designer, right? They're hiring designers. And I applied. I can't design it, but I don't know whether they were curious and they're like, let's just invite this guy. And they're like, wait.
So they are recruiting for designers.
Yes, interns. Interns associate, I can't remember. I was like, I don't know, like they didn't say designers, but the things they asked for were design. They were like, oh, geniuses, welcome. Like, come and apply.
Okay.
But the things they wrote were leaning towards design. And me, I just applied.
Right.
And then they invited me, right, to interview. And they asked me, oh, why did you apply? I was like, well, I find that designers always need writers. Someone needs to write the copy. Hire me.
Designs.
All right. And I got rejected.
Wow.
It's
Why?
not. Oh, yeah. So,
that's your first job you actually.
That was my first, like, real job interview. But here's the interesting thing, right? One of the people interviewing me, I don't know, he found me fascinating. And so he asked to follow me on Twitter. And then, like, a few weeks after, he just randomly tweeted at me and, like, as a reply to another tweet and said, oh, you should definitely apply for this.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, and I scrolled, I was like, oh, pause. Okay. I didn't even know what it was, to be honest. And I just shot an email straight. And the next week I was invited for an interview.
Wow. Wow. From a rejection.
And then one day I'm at home laying carpet with my brother. And then I just get a text message telling me to resume at so time. I'm like, ooh.
Wow.
And so, like, I just went. So I literally was going. If a bank, except a bank actually, if any job was offering me anything at that time, I would have accepted it. And I think I was just lucky that it was a media company. It's a media company. So, and that's how I learned. I mean, I've been trying things. I'm scraping by, like trying this here and there to make this change. Nothing meaningful or significant. But like this was the first actual
8 to 9 to
95 paid gig.
And it's as a result of you floating around when you were trying to find your path. And
Yeah, pretty much.
You talked about your blog.
We'll never speak of that blog. That blog will never see the light of day. I'm taking it to my grave. You're going to have to waterboard me 70 times to get the blog out of me.
But that's what made you, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, it made me, only me. Nobody else has to know about it.
Okay.
It's funny, right? Because during my interview for the Pulse job, they asked me, oh yeah, where's your portfolio? And I was like, well, I have this blog, right? Where I write all kinds. I write like flash fiction. Then I tried a challenge. I was trying to challenge myself. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to write flash fiction daily for 100 days.
Wow.
I'm 300 days. So 300 words of fiction every day for 300 days. I didn't succeed, actually. I did 100 and something.
That's a lot.
But it was not 300. But that's not why we're here.
We'll come back to the blog matter.
So, and they were like,
goals.
oh, they were impressed. Even though I did not tell them the 300 days part, but they were impressed by my 100 and something. And they're like, oh yeah, come and start. And so that's how I started at that job. And from that job, someone at my current job recommended me to my next job.
Oh, what are you doing at Paul's?
Oh, I was a reporter.
Okay.
I was on the general floating, roving beat where I was writing about everything. I was on a night shift, actually. 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. That was my first shift.
Okay.
And basically the idea was that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is check your phone, and you had to see stories, and those stories were written by us.
Okay.
Then 3 a.m. to 10 a.m. That was my later shift. Red eye shift.
That's your first left on.
I guess. I'd never have imagined myself working in media, which is funny because when I was a teenager, I used to go to this camp, NASFAT. NASFAT had this children's camp.
Yeah.
And there was this man, Jibril Falami. Like he used to coach me on how to read for an audience. And it's so funny because he actually works in TV now. I think he's at LTV now. But he's just really wild. Like he was also sure that I could do it. So that was my first job experience, actually doing media.
Okay.
Reading the news as a child. Maybe writing here and there, writing essays here and there. But when I think of the writers that I know and respect, many of them, like they've been writing forever. I've only been writing fairly seriously for about just a little over a decade, to be honest.
You knew a lot of writers that inspired you, right?
I think we all always have that. So even the writers I'm talking about like people I consider as my peers.
Oh, okay.
I'm in a sense, I feel like a late bloomer. It's not, I don't feel bad about it. It's just, I just know that it just means that, oh, I've not been writing for this long. I wonder how I'll write if I write
If you
even
had
more.
started
Right?
earlier.
No, like if I write even more, like the past has gone. No longer my business. I mean, it is my business, but it's no longer anything I can do anything about. For my current job, then in 2015, I got someone recommended to another job. I was working with Chude, Red Media. They had this experiment called Party Jollof, Sounds.ng, a couple of interesting publications. And that was very, very pivotal for me because I was coming from Pulse where we're playing a quantity game, right? Where I had to write a lot. And I was in this place where we had to write few things and make it really good. And I happened to be working with like extremely talented writers. Extremely talented writers. Like it's not even a thing where it's like, oh, one person is manageable. Everyone was
Really
crazy. And I used to think they were crazy whenever they said, wow, Fuad, wow. I'm like, what type of talking about? You are like fire. And I was not even watching them because they're just really good. Toye, Toke, Edwin. So creatively, that was very, very refreshing.
Yeah.
So while I was there, my boss at Pulse, Osage, was like, yo, you need to come back.
Back to Pulse.
Yeah.
Where you were writing 100.
No, not 100. No, not 100. But I was writing 20 at the time.
20 per day. That's
Yes.
a lot.
Yeah, but it was the economics of that. The economics of that is a completely different episode. In hindsight, it paid off
Yeah.
in the mid term. Quite frankly, even to the long term, it paid off in some way. Did not pay off in other ways, but for the most part, it did pay off. To be honest, went back to Pulse. When I got back to Pulse, going back to the company that you left, you kind of feel like a star somehow.
Yeah,
Especially when you
bringing
were
it
brought back.
back.
And I started to feel like an imposter, right? And in the middle of feeling like an imposter, in the middle of that crisis, I just landed on a ridiculous idea. And the idea was, I just became obsessed that, you know what? I'm going to travel around Nigeria in one stretch. I'm going to do it. Nothing will stop me.
Like travel around.
Yes, road travel.
Wow.
And so it was end of 2016. I told my boss at the December 31st, I was at the office. Don't ask me why I was at the office. I was at the office and he just branched by. He was going to church. He just stopped by to like pick up stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, I want to do this thing now. And I was like, I think it really means a lot to me that he did not at any point say no. Right? He literally just said, can do it.
Supported your dreams.
That's a weird statement. That's a very weird
Your
statement.
weird dreams. Who travels
And so
around
it's
the
like,
world?
and I was like, yeah, we can do it, but we need to figure out like, you know how we're funding. And so I now spent like 2 weeks consuming everything I could find on the internet about how people funded content. Like reading everything, watching videos not even tutorials, watching videos of people who have worked with brands, seeing how they framed it. And so by January, I just approached him with a list of like 20-something brands. I'm like, these are the brands we can talk to.
Wow.
And I remember
you went
him.
to do the hard work yourself.
Yeah, because like I find that every time I have to push a new thing, I have to fight for it. Like, yeah, it's nice. Oh, okay. But if people can see it, you need to like bring it and make people see
You
it.
can see the idea yourself.
It also feels like a good reminder for myself at this time. I remember he was taking a nap and he was just waking up from a nap. He used to like rest. So that means he was at his least, he had just woken up, so he was at his least crankiest. He's always cranky in the afternoon, extremely cranky. So that was at a good time, and I just like, yo, Alpha, remember that thing I told you about? I just showed him the list of
20 companies.
my itinerary. I first showed him all the stories I wanted to chase or places I wanted to go, and I was like, oh, okay, so how are we going to? I just showed him the next tab on Google Sheets. I just saw the list of brands. I said, fantastic, we're doing this shit. And I was excited. I just ran straight to like the sales office the next day. I said, yo, I'm trying to do this thing. Started to speak English. There was this dude, some white dude, I can't remember his name. Good for him. I remember like just explaining it. I was trying to explain the sales angle, how we would work with brands. But I feel like my explanation was bad because I was an amateur.
I see.
I'm also probably just making excuses for him, right?
You weren't communicating the idea.
Yeah, but I can't control how he feels. I can control my own. But I remember explaining to him, Intel was doing a campaign then called with Intel It was with Intel and Powerful. And And I was like, it'd be so great if I'm traveling around the country, writing, doing stuff, and like I'm with an Intel-powered computer. It's like, oh, it's Intel and powerful. And then he was like, why would any brands want that? That sounds so stupid.
Oh, wow.
And I remember just being like, I was just like, I just turned around and left. As I was leaving, one of the people on the team just came back and just held me. I said, "Guy, we go run this thing." Damilayo did, and I went all out, right? I now had to learn how to sell, right?
Wow.
So first of all, I started learning content strategy. I learned how to sell, how to get people to pay for stuff.
And then now you're learning how to sell it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I went to social media week. I walked up to anybody. Once you just sit on a panel, I'm like, this person has a decision maker somewhere. Once you just come down, I've ambushed you at the stairs. Hi, my name is Fuad. Spoke to Maggie, spoke to people at Milo. I was just talking, spoke to people at Nescafe. I was just yarning dust. Sending emails, zero responses, zero.
Did you give up on the dream? Or the idea?
I have periods where I become like very, very obsessive with things, and like it is no longer down to logic or the right or sensible thing. It's down to the fact that I'm going to stop till it gets done.
Consistency.
I don't know if it's constant. It's just blood loss. It's like when someone is craving blood, like a vampire is craving, and like it's not going to stop.
Can't relate.
And so I kept knocking everywhere. I kept shaking every tree. And I remember just going, it was while I was pitching other people and they were just I just ran into someone. Of all the people to run into, it was that guy who recommended me to Pulse, who told me to see Pulse.
Your job. And your
first job. Like, pointed me to the first job, which was enough, to be honest. And I just told him, I was like, yo. I was like, get off. And I told him, I was like, get off now. Just picked up his phone. And he just called someone at Access Bank.
Wow.
And then the guy was like, I just went there for a meeting. First day meeting. Like, I think the third meeting. And I'll never forget, that time, I was not going home. I sleep at the office. I hated traffic. So I just stay at the office.
Can humble you.
I stayed at the office all week. But that day, and this sounds ridiculous, but that day, I think I left the office very, very early. And somehow I forgot my toothbrush in my pocket. Okay. So I was inside Access Bank headquarters. And this guy is sitting across from me and he's like, with his suit, and I'm just there in my t-shirt and Ankara pants. Then I used to wear only Ankara pants. He had no idea there was toothbrush. And he's like, yeah, we're going to commit some money to this.
Wow.
And then he and so let's assume for the purpose of this that he committed to M, right? Now, when I did the budget for what it takes me to travel around Nigeria alone, frugally, right?
Yeah.
Public transport, cheap hotels, squatting. My budget was 500K, right? And then he said 2 million. And in my head, I was like,
yeah.
But outside, I was like, sounds. I think I'll make it work. Let's go back to the sales thing. Yeah, I was actually with Dami that day. I think I was with Dami. And then just go back to the office. Dami, the one that when I was leaving that sales office, I held him and said we go run out.
Oh yeah.
Because I wanted the salesperson to be there when I was having those conversations. And I just go back to the office and told Osage. And then Osage told someone in sales. And I just said, 2 million. The person was like,
did you news get back to the person that rejected you?
I have not, I never went back to check. I was the one getting to do what I wanted. Mm-hmm. I actually never went back to check now that I think about it. And then they just told, I remember, I think it was Tunde, and Tunde was like, nope, it's too small.
Wow.
Now, so it's interesting, right? Because like, so Tunde was not opposed to it, but it was like, and then next year I was like, nah, 12M is too small. We're going to upsell it. Now, the obvious thing is like, yeah, why? Oh, now you suddenly have ideas about upselling, right? But the fact remained that it was also perfect timing, because he managed to upsell it like by 150%.
Wow.
Right? I could never have done that. Like, so I protected us in a way is like 2M, he upsold it to like 5M. He literally told them that, look, bring 5M or keep your money. They dropped it.
Wow.
I would never have done that. I would never have done that. Now, another person I had been speaking to also introduced me to someone at Samsung, and someone else, people at Samsung gave me gear like phone, watch, everything. And then, yeah, and Tunde is like, yeah, we have camera in our office. Keep your camera, give us money. And then he converted those gear to money. Like, and basically upsold it from, let's say 2M to altogether it's like 10M. I would never have done that.
Yeah.
I would never be able to do that.
It's experiencing.
Yeah, like, and again, and I'm saying this because it was a thing that came up in conversations then, like at the office, like, yeah. I really think that for everything, for the journey of everything or the stage of everything, like there are people who are perfect for each stage. If maybe if you had bought in earlier, I won't have. I now know how to sell.
Yourself, yes.
Right? I now know how to sell.
To enjoy the
I still know how
process.
to sell. We have sold together.
Yeah.
I'm a bad closer.
You didn't tell me about this closing.
Which one?
You closed the deal for Access Bank.
Yeah, but I don't feel like a good closer. I can close. I've closed a few. I just don't feel like a great closer. I feel like with sales, with actual like selling, pitching, proposing, I feel very decent. And I mean, you can say I'm not, right? Because you're more experienced. But like, I feel above average.
Yes, you are above average.
What
are you doing now?
I get there. So, yeah, so I managed to like, so I managed to travel.
You eventually traveled.
I did travel, and I was on the road for 80 days. I went to every state in Nigeria.
Days.
Yes.
Wow.
I slept in DSS office. I was were in detention.
What happened?
Oh yeah, they were investigating whether we were Boko Haram or spies. The spy part was a compliment, though. I think I kept.
You felt like FBI, right?
Yeah, I was like, wow, spy. There were like 3 of us for most of the trip.
Okay.
And then one person, Susan, joined us for like 2 weeks. But yeah, I did go on that trip, and in a sense, it transformed my life. That trip, it was extremely transformative because suddenly my world expanded. Like those experiences just soaked in. I remember I started tweeting less and less because I just suddenly felt like with all the things I had now learned, it just made me speechless. Because every time I see people talking, I'm like, oh God, it is not this simple. I remember then people used to say, yeah, let them just bomb the whole Sambisa Forest. I'm like, Sambisa Forest is 5 times bigger than Lagos. How the fuck are you going to bomb Sambisa Forest? So meeting soldiers that were my age mates, like actually on the front lines, meeting Nnamdi Kanu, meeting like all kinds of people.
Wow.
Like my head just yeah. But I remember when I got back, the week I got back, the first thing I did was one of the first things I did was I downloaded a map of West Africa. I just drew a line from Lagos to Dakar. And then from Dakar, I drew another line back to Sokoto, like through the north. And I was like,
yeah.
Next.
That's the next.
That was going to be my next. I was going to do it. I did not, but I was not yet very obsessive about it at the time. It was 2017.
Yeah, so the push wasn't there.
Yeah. And then I left Pulse, right? This time I did not go back. My plan after I left Pulse was I did not have a real concrete plan. I was just going to resign.
Yeah.
I was just going to be resign and become a traveling journalist, like traveling from place to place, writing about stuff.
I'm losing count on the number of pivots you've done so far.
Yeah, so I was just going to travel and just be a journalist, like just writing about things I was seeing, taking photos. And then I just had coffee with this guy, Tomoa, Vesta Coffee. And Tomoa just said, like with Big About Media, Tech About Zikoko, like, oh, want to be the place, want to like tell stories that strike the cultural nerve, that affect. I was like, sign me up, because it was an old argument I used to have, a debate I used to have with Osage then I think we have really good stories in between these 20 stories we're writing, occasional bright ones, and let's give it a special treatment. And then he used to say stuff like, oh yeah, the business's priority is reach and revenue, and I got that, but I just was not satisfied. And so suddenly, like, someone was like, oh yeah, come and do this thing. And then I joined Big Cabal. And then somehow, reluctantly, I became editor-in-chief of Big Cabal, of Zikoko, specifically. And like, I like to think we did a madness. I left in 2020. But I like to think we did a madness. There did many interesting things. 2019.
With your writing.
Yeah, but now I was writing less and less, right? Yeah. Because now I was writing once a week. I started writing once a week in 2019. I had this column called Naira Life. It's about money, asking people to tell me about their money secrets. But it was an act of selfishness that I was writing that consistently. I wanted to still be writing, but less and less it was becoming unimportant, like as my work, like it was no longer an expectation. So I was, while I was on the road, first time I was traveling away, I was shooting videos, I was editing occasionally, but mostly writing and videos and everything. So 2019, traveled again, did West Africa.
You did West Africa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a giant boss from GIGM. Small crew, like 6 of us. 6 because we count the boss as the 6th.
Yeah.
Jet mover. Then the name of the boss that we gave the boss was Black. I'll never forget. Ridiculous. Can't believe I remember this.
You will remember. Black is your thing.
Yeah, so 2020 pandemic, around June, I started to feel like it was time to move again. I had no idea what I was going to do or where I was going, but it was time to move again. So by December.
What triggers that moment?
It's restlessness.
Oh, okay. So you don't hear this voice saying, "Oh, this is the next thing."
Yeah, so it's
did
like,
you plan it? Did you just plan it?
Like not really. Because I remember writing into my journal in June, and I remember this because I saw a reminder.
Yeah.
My journal reminded me that, oh yeah, in 2020 you wrote that you're going to send your resignation in September, like that kind of thing. So September, I just told my boss that, look, it's no longer a matter of if, it's now when. No. And so I was like, I'll be here till the end of November. I had no idea, to be honest. And so I was just having all kinds of conversations. There was a couple of very interesting ones. I was supposed to lead a radio station. Someone built a giant studio, and I was supposed to join them. There was this interesting conversation with all kinds of studios, right? And then somehow I just ended up in a conversation with NAD. And it's funny, right? Because I had no idea what I was going to do at Eden. I did not know what I was going to do. It was like, yeah, so it's growth.
Writing,
I was like,
engineering room, editor, chief editor.
yeah, I was like, what am I going to do at Eden? And then it's like um growth. I'm like, okay. So I mean, the thing is that because of the work I had done over the last like 3 years, I've had to worry about traction, like how a thing grows, right?
Starting from that little experience of
Yeah.
selling your.
Yeah, but like it was never the hill I was going to die on. I've always been a production person, like a person who is making.
Yeah.
And so somehow we just entered the conversation of growth. I'm like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. It was actually just I was more I was just very, very interested in like understanding how like
Curiosity.
the engine worked. Like, so it's funny, right? We're having this interesting conversation where everyone was talking about why they are at Eden, like what's driving them, and then people were like, God, like Presley was
What would
like,
you
Presley
say?
was like, Presley was like I did this madness at Jimmy, and I want to come and show I can't do it again. This was like, nah, fuck it, like I don't like. Prosper was like, I want to be the world class company. I've been a world class. I've been now I was like, want to be.
What can I say?
I was just like, oh my. I
I
swear
want
na
to blow the
vibes.
revenue.
I was like, I just came out of curiosity. I don't see what you are doing. In fact, someone was like, oh, this is the money laundering business. It cannot be a real company.
And
I was
you
like,
want to know.
yeah, let me go and find out how they actually even do the laundering. It was pure curiosity. Like fast forward like 8 months, I was obsessing over like customer success. This was before you joined. Obsessed. I was like, I used to talk to customers every week. I used to read customer feedback religiously. I used to,
From
in
news
fact,
and writing.
like I was consuming. God, I was consuming by like month 6 or 7. I consumed a shit ton of growth literature. And it's funny because I did not feel good enough. But every time I had conversations with people who had been in it for longer, I'm like, waiting this guy they talk. This guy know they whine me now. Yeah, you know say this is a bobo. So
But you've consumed a lot of materials.
yeah, so like, but nonetheless, but like the interesting thing about
It
it
seems
was,
you were doubting yourself most of the time.
so I guess it's a problem I've always had, right? It's I like to think of it as my discontent. Like I'm just extremely unimpressed with myself. I think what really helps me, what just helps me is that it doesn't hinder me. You know how some people, when they feel they're not good enough, they say, oh, I'm not doing it. That's the one I want to do.
Curiosity, curious child.
That's the one I want to do.
Curiosity kills the cat.
But yeah, a fucking big cat, man.
No,
Meow.
the is still.
Yeah, and so there was like doing Eden. Bro, like I thought like everything I've done in the past combined, it's not hard as Eden. I swear. But bro, I fucking cooked, man. I cooked. Like well done. Like nothing like medium rare. Well
Maybe
done.
that it was food that brought you. You know you were.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting joke at the time. Yeah, Fuad came here because of food. I mean, the food was great. Is great.
Yeah.
But it was really just like seeing how like a different type of monster was. Yeah, pretty wild experience.
Nice, very interesting.
In between all of this period, right? All kinds of people, for some weird reason, have reached out to me for all kinds of weird things. Oh, help me like assemble my team. Oh, help me like coach my team. I'm like, coach. Oh, help me do this. Oh, help me make this. Oh, help me hire. All kinds of like weird things. And so, like I would say over the last decade, I've just been a person who has tried everything, all kinds of things, all kinds of ridiculous things. And now I just feel like I'm not in a place where like I know exactly what I want to be doing. The kinds of things I want to be doing, I know exactly what they are. It might change 2 years from now, but
Yes, I was just going
because for example now, right? In 2019, I was trying to find something on the internet, some old story, and I was like, why can't I find this story? I was annoyed. He's like, you know what? What if we took all the old newspapers from Nigerian history and just made them available online so everybody can find whatever they're looking for?
Wow.
And I just went down that rabbit hole. Started chasing that one too.
And what's left on?
And now I'm talking to like really, really old journalists who were writing in like the 70s. I'm talking to publishers. I'm learning how paper works. I'm learning about scanners and scanning technology. And like,
Out of the fact that you're looking for a story online.
yeah, like I should have just moved on with my life because I don't know who sent me a message. But like I don't know. To be honest, I think also now is the first time that I'm having to think more critically about the future. Because now I'm married. Maybe I'm also just older.
You're no Gen Z.
I am Gen Z, just older. So
Older Gen Z.
yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess the final thing is I don't even know what's in the future.
So tell us about archiving.
Oh yeah. I really just want a scenario where you open Google and you search what happened in Lagos on January 1st, 1964, and you find something. Because we've archived newspapers and it has like gone online and people have seen it. It's like that search, right? The journey to making that search possible will literally be like us going to these libraries, finding publishers, finding newspapers, taking those newspapers, scanning them, using a couple of tech, OCR, all of that, to extract the stories.
That's a lot.
And make them like indexable for search, and then you'll be able to find the story and do whatever you like with it, right? And for me, I feel like it's, and I'm saying this for now, right? Because that might change in a few years, but it's the ultimate pursuit of context, because it's like how much did Nigeria budget on education in 1982, right? Like, I want us to be able to answer that question in one search.
Yeah.
Whenever you ask ChatGPT a question from Nigerian history, it almost always says nonsense, and it's not. Simply because like
doesn't have
there is no.
information.
Do you understand? Like, there is no information
Available
age without
information,
information. And so that's what archiving is about. It's about finding old newspapers, finding magazines, digitally archiving them and making them accessible to everyone. I also really, 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 really have to continue writing. There's so many. I have so much to say, man. I have so much to do. And I feel like until I hit, I'm 31 now, right?
Yeah.
And I lived my 20s with this morbid assumption that I was going to die before I reached 30.
My God.
So I never really used to think far, right? This is like, okay, next thing. So now I'm like, okay, now I'm over 30, right?
You're not dead.
I'm not dead.
That is not coming.
And I'm married, right? So now I have to be optimistic about the
Yeah.
future, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what does
Something changed.
Yeah, and it's like, what does next decade look like? So now I'm thinking about the next decade and like all the things that I know I want to make.
Yeah.
I'm also open to change, right? I might decide that, oh, okay, but like I feel like one of the values I want to like build over the next decade is it's just learning to say no.
Okay.
And like, just because before, like, my story arcs for different missions or jobs were smaller, but now it feels like they are now bigger arcs, and I just need to learn to say no until that arc is exhausted. But yeah, that's pretty much all my left turns. I feel like my left turn, I've done enough
There's
left turns
several left turns.
that it feels like a really interesting square right now.
Yeah. It's turning from left. Okay, we've done left, left, left. To the
Becomes a
left.
square. Do enough left turns, becomes a square.
Okay, so one question. What do you think if you have an opportunity to change one thing, what would that then be, basically?
When?
Your lifetime, like if you are giving back, you have to rewind
there's
back.
there's only one thing that I change. I don't know what it would have cost my parents, right? But my first computer, I owned it when I was 18.
Okay.
But by the time I owned it, I was working on my project. So I went right into work with it. If there was something I'd change, not assuming socioeconomic factors and spending power of my parents, I'd give me a computer a decade earlier.
Yeah.
I'd give me a computer a decade earlier. I think that it would have expanded my world even more massively. I remember then we had a neighbor that had a computer, and I'd go to their house at night and stay up all night just reading Encounter articles. And I wonder what that would have looked like if I had my own computer and I could play around with stuff. Because what will happen is I'll first of all play, then I'll become bored, then I'll start trying to learn stuff.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So I think that's one big thing that I would do. That's the only thing I would do.
Amazing.
That I can think about now.
Amazing. So, so your next left turn is archiving, right? That's like the baby, the next baby, right?
Archiving and I call it Vistanium, right? It's where I just want to like make stuff and like craft compelling like stories. Archiving feels like a community service, right? Everybody, but this one is like my own selfish need. Like I've been constant. Like I need to make a trip to Gombe to just go and sit with one man, for like a few hours, right? And stick around to Abuja, sit with the soldier who was an active combatant in Northeast. I want to speak to all kinds of people. And so that's what Vistanium would do for me, to help me speak to those people. Archiving is just everybody access.
Making information accessible.
I also think that I'd like to. I am very, very fascinated by companies. I think one of the most revolutionary things anyone can do right now is start a company. Any kind of company. And I'd like to get under the hood and like see how many companies work, learn how they work, just absorb everything, and then start to transfer that knowledge around. So that's pretty much where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
That's very nice. So what would you like to say to people that are kind of trying to find their left turn? What advice would you want to give them?
I have nothing to tell them. Go and fucking work. Okay. Like just build a reputation for a person that can like get things done. That's all.
Just keep doing.
Just
keep
go
learning.
And like fight for your life. Like we are here. We have not killed ourselves. Might as well like just like fucking grind.
Yeah.
Like I feel extremely lazy as an individual, and if I've not found an alternative to work, that means there's no alternative. Just put in the hours, man.
Yeah. Put in the hours, do the research.
No, they want me. No, they do put in the hours, do the research. Just go and fucking grind.
Much. This has been amazing. It's really, really been amazing. Thank you so much, Fu'ad, for sharing. And I really think you guys should follow Fuad on Twitter. He's not yet. It's consistent.
The following on Twitter, they see me tweeting Shay Vibes.
You should follow
Shay
him.
Vibes
Please.
lyrics.
I'm going to post his handle. At least you can follow him to get more information. But really, thank you so much. It's been a very amazing conversation.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing. And thank you so much once again. And I wish you guys see you in the next episode.